This is Pitchdeckasia, and my name's Graham Brown in the Singapore studio, joined by Priyanka and Rohan from SeaMiles. Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going good.
Thanks for having us, Graham. We're very excited to be here.
Yeah.
It's great to have you here. So we're going to learn about SeaMiles, a bit about yourself as well.
Yeah.
So we were just chatting off air here a little bit. Priyanka, you are from Mumbai.
That's right, Mumbai, India.
And Rohan, yourself?
I'm local.
Born and bred Singapore?
No, I was also actually born in Mumbai, but
Okay.
I moved to Singapore about 20 years ago.
Yeah. Where's SeaMiles based? Is your HQ here in Singapore?
Yes, SeaMiles is Singaporean.
Okay, great. Excellent. So representing India and Singapore today.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about what SeaMiles is about. We've got your pitch deck. We're going to have a look at that.
Mm-hmm.
What is the problem that you're solving? How did you guys get involved in this as well? How would you describe yourselves before we look at the pitch deck?
Mm-hmm.
Are you techie people? Are you marketing people? What are your backgrounds individually? Rohan, yourself?
Well, for me, I actually studied marketing and finance, and I ended up working in a marketing capacity at some startups in the United States. And given that I have a finance background as well, I did some work in fintech in the banking sector here in Singapore before eventually transitioning into SeaMiles.
Okay, and how long have you been there?
With SeaMiles, since September last year.
Okay, so almost a year, coming up 10
Yes,
months.
my first anniversary.
Soon, all right. Fantastic. Yourself, Priyanka, what's your background?
Yeah, so I have a very diverse background, mostly in content and in marketing and publishing. So prior to joining SeaMiles, I was with a UK maritime news publication. And you must be wondering why Rohan and myself are here today and not the founders. Rohan and me actually also have a personal background in maritime, coming from maritime families, so to speak. So,
What's a maritime family?
so my father retired as a marine engineer. My brother's still sailing, and a lot of family members in the maritime space, as well as Rohan too.
Yeah, for example, my grandfather was a sailor, and my dad was a sailor. He works in the maritime industry still.
Yeah.
And
When you mean sailor, sailor can mean a lot of different things, right?
well, yes.
I mean, he could have his own boat, or he could be captain of a ship, or he could be
Right.
a marine, right?
In the case of my dad, he was eventually a captain,
Yeah.
and then he moved to a shore job.
Naval captain, merchant navy?
Yes.
Which?
I'm sorry?
Was he a naval captain?
Yes. But no, sorry, it's the merchant navy.
Merchant navy.
It's a commercial.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And so, I used to always get asked, why didn't you join maritime?
Yeah.
So I'm here today.
Okay. Full circle.
Yeah.
Well, I was born in Portsmouth, which is a naval town, so there's a bit of a naval vibe going on here
That's
today.
right. That's
So
right.
let's talk about SeaMiles. Let's talk all about that. We've got the pitch deck. If we can get the pitch deck up, we'll have a look at the... well, I think the first page kind of gives a little bit of a clue as to what we're going to talk about. Every mile counts.
Yes.
Sea miles, air miles. Are we going in that direction? Is that a natural sort of like...
We have plans for the future.
Similar,
Oh, okay.
similar, but not the same, because SeaMiles has a layered approach to it. And
Yeah.
while it is a loyalty rewards program for the maritime sector, there's also a welfare angle to it. So Graham, if you don't mind, can I shoot a question at you?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so what do you understand when I say a seafarer? What do you understand? What is your perception of a seafarer?
One of his family, maybe a seafarer, naval families, maritime families.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Like if I say, okay, I'm working in the merchant navy,
Yeah.
so to speak, because that's our primary market. What do you understand of someone who's working in the merchant navy?
I think there's a lot of people who live that kind of life. We don't really know a lot about them. You know, they tend to be, I think a lot of people from Southeast Asia as well. They tend to be, I think a lot of Burmese, Myanmarese and Filipinos work in merchant navy, doing more sort of service type roles.
Right.
There is that group of people, as well as, I guess, engineers and,
Right.
you know,
Right.
maybe some of your relatives as well who captain the ship.
Right.
I don't really know a lot about that world, so I think it's a world that we don't really understand unless you're in it.
Exactly. So that's the point of SeaMiles. Basically, from people we've asked and the research we've conducted, a seafarer, somebody working in the merchant navy, irrespective of rank or rating, is perceived as someone who's in a high income earning group. They have a cushy life when they come down, when they're working. Well, yes, they're away from their families, but when they come to shore, they're really enjoying themselves, right? Right. That's what people understand of seafarers or the seafaring fraternity, so to speak. But actually, we, being from a maritime background and working in this space, understand the nuances of what it actually means. So it means time away from home, which is really very tough. That separation from your family. And imagine, being with crew, maybe you may get along with them, you may not get along with them, but then you're on a boat, so to speak,
you don't have a
for,
choice.
long periods of time. So it's actually a very, very difficult job. And even the transition from when they retire, it's tax-free income while they're sailing, but when they retire, you're taxed heavily. So there are the benefits that are being given to that sector, apart from the obvious monetary benefits, are very, very little, which is why we have the problem of retention of seafarers and also attracting new seafarers, right? So SeaMiles solves that problem. We are actually incentivizing the sailing process. So we're giving benefits to seafarers based on just their job, which is active sailing. You see, so when they embark at a port and they travel through their voyage and disembark at another port, their final port, they earn miles through that. Right, through that entire journey. And those miles they can redeem for their families, they can redeem for themselves through various lifestyle enhancing benefits. So that in that sense, it's a loyalty program and also a welfare program for the maritime industry.
Excellent. Good summary, Priyanka. Thank you for helping me understand it. And for the listeners out there as well. And let's give a shout out to everybody who's watching at home. So those who've come to support Priyanka and Rohan today, hello everybody. Do you want to do a personal shout out as well to your audience out there, your fans?
Sure, I'd like to say hi to my family and even my friends who hopefully are watching this like I asked them to.
Right, well, good for them. Are any of them on boats right now?
Not among my circle of friends, but definitely among my family.
Yeah,
sure.
So they understand what this is about. So, and by the way, if you are watching live on YouTube or you're watching on the archive, give these guys a thumbs up because YouTube likes that. That will help share this story to a wider group of people and help it get out there. So let me understand, seafarers, they live a very distinct, unique lifestyle. You talk about retention being an issue as well as attracting people into this industry. If I can jump into the pitch deck a little bit, you talk about the problem up front. So I think on slide 4. And where generally do people get into this industry? It must be through family connections and through word of mouth, isn't it? I don't often see people recruiting for any kind of maritime related jobs out in the public. It's not obvious, like maybe it's, through your second connections and so on. So is that an issue now, attracting like younger talent and so on into these sectors?
You're absolutely right there, Graham. It's actually a referral kind of industry. Since it's a niche industry, if you're recommended or if you've heard through word of mouth, that's your entry point. It's not publicized too much. There's not enough of data of the maritime industry, although 90% of global trade is by sea. There's still not enough information, and it's a very specialized and a very high risk job.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to understand how big this market really is. There's a couple of slides here which you've shared about the actual market size. So we go back a few facts and figures. There's one later on as well, which I'll just sort of like jump right to the end. I think I might have skipped past it on size 15 here as well. So you've got a lot of data here. So we like data on this show. So, and by the way, some of the people might not be able to see this. They might be listening. So I'm going to go back to the first one because it's more simplified. You mentioned it already, Priyanka, 90% of trade, global trade, is by sea. It's fascinating, isn't it? Even in this world of when we talk about blockchain and fintech, for example, digitized, 90% is still by sea.
That's
exactly. We're all connected by the maritime industry. Almost every piece of equipment in this room has been transported here
from
because
China.
of maritime. Yes, exactly. And so people don't realize it, but we're all connected to a seafarer, whether we know it or not. And I think Priyanka can speak more to that, actually.
Can I just ask about, is that going to change a lot as well? Now we see, for example, we're here in Asia, One Belt, One Road, which is the Chinese initiative. And a big part of that is seafaring routes as well. How is that going to affect things as well? I mean, I imagine you're going to see a lot more freight traffic, sea traffic in this area moving. I know it is happening all the time between China and the world, but they're trying to join everything up now, join all the dots, aren't they? So it's only going to get bigger.
Yes, that's what we perceive. We perceive that it's only getting bigger, and now that there's more information, the pain points are coming out. Like, Graham, I'm not sure whether you know this statistic, but seafarers, by the WHO has marked them as the second most profession prone to suicide.
Wow.
So that's a big red line we're seeing now, and it's a deterrent. Like youth, why would they want to join that,
Yeah. Why is that?
Well, because like I said, it's an isolated environment, it's not a stable job, it's a contractual job. So every time you sign up to sail, you're not on permanent payroll, while some companies offer that, but it's a contract you're signing,
Right.
and it's just relevant for that period of time. There's no real benefits for the family too,
Right.
in terms of insurance and medical and all of that.
I didn't realize it was contract based. I can imagine it is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
can you let's create an avatar for a seafarer if you can, who's sort of in the middle, who maybe 30 years old, middle career. What kind of role would they be doing? What kind of position? What kind of title would they have? Just so we can understand who these people really are. I know there's lots of choices, but just take your pick.
Well,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was actually going to defer to you because as I understand it, Priyanka actually has a brother who's about the age that you're describing,
Okay.
who's a captain.
Yeah, my brother just cleared his master's. He's 30 years old. So
Right.
it totally depends
Yeah.
on when you're joining the industry. So if you join as a cadet, it can be as young as 16 to 18.
Yeah.
And by the time you're 30, if you're lucky, if you studied hard and you worked hard, you can achieve your master's ranking if you're in a good company.
But that's 14 years of a career, right?
Yes.
So
Mhm.
I
Yes.
imagine that they start a lot earlier
That's right.
in Navy, I mean, in the seafaring industries.
That's right.
So, I mean, captain's obviously quite a high position. What
That's
what sort of the mid-level positions that people, what are the bulk of those roles that people occupy?
So there are different ranks also depending on your family background and what income group you're in. So there are also ratings. There are people who provide services on board. But majorly there are two sections. There's the engineering section, and then there's the navigation section, the deck section, where the highest levels are your chief engineer and your master, your captain. Below them there are about 4 or 5 ranks that you need to, get. There are about 20 people on a vessel, just to give you, on a ship, on a sailing ship. The average is about 20 people on ship in different ranks and different roles.
Do they usually always work together? Are they like a family, or are they picked for every different project? Because you can imagine if they've always worked together, it's quite familial. Is it not like that?
No, it's not like that.
You
It's
can
not like
transition in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're recruited through crewing agencies. Some companies have their own in-house, crewing agencies, while others have, they get them externally through a third-party crewing agency. So you're not guaranteed the same crew every time. Every time you're on board, you don't know.
Yeah,
who
I
you're
imagine
gonna be
that's
stuck
a source of anxiety for people as well. You
Yeah.
don't know
That
who
adds
you're
to
going
that
to be.
environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long do they typically sail for?
So that's also dependent on what region you're from. So in the Philippines, they can sail for as long as 11 months in a year.
Yeah, is that like
because
on a
that's
cruise ship?
That's the
or something?
maximum cap. No,
Yeah, that's
No.
cap by
Any
regulation.
merchant, yeah.
So
Okay,
any merchant vessel.
yeah, 11 months a year
Yeah,
away from
your
home.
family. Yes.
Okay, and like you mentioned, suicide's quite high. So, I mean, what are the other issues as well that prevent people staying or joining the industry? Well, obviously morale may be one, and time away from home. You say it pays well. There's good prospects, especially if you earn tax-free. It sounds pretty good
Yes.
for a lot of people, right? Maybe you
Yes.
could do a few years. You could do 5 years
Yes.
in the Merchant Navy, make a bit of cash, and get out.
Exactly.
Right? What's wrong with that?
Exactly. Exactly. So that's what's happening right now, Graham. If you see, although there are some companies that have been able to retain, but they still acknowledge that they face a challenge in attracting seafarers. People to join merchant vessels and sail on them. This is also because the technology offerings that are there for crew right now, they're very reactive. So if there's, an accident on board, there'll suddenly be measures put in place, and then there'll be, actions to combat that or to prevent those from happening. But with SeaMiles, ours is more of a proactive approach to safety. So, if they're happy in their lifestyles, if their families are happy, with the lifestyle benefits that they're getting, it could incentivize the sailing process. Say, okay, fine, it's not that bad. We can go, we can earn some miles, go take a holiday the next time I'm down, or, get other benefits. We're trying to bring in, different features into the app, into the platform, so that they have access to maybe insurance. We're also trying to tie up with charitable organizations. So there's an organization called the Mission to Seafarers, that provides spiritual guidance and support. Which is sometimes the need of the hour, and it's not tangible. You can't, like, people normally hide their feelings. If they're depressed, you can't really tell. But if they feel the need for spiritual guidance, they can even access that through the app. So we're trying to like create a culture. Also, there's no corporate culture, so to speak, with seafarers. Like I've said, it's not the same crew you're working with every time. You're not sure what's happening at the office. There's a disconnect between what's happening in the office and while sailing ships.
Yeah.
So through our platform, what we're doing is we're offering a B2B kind of model, wherein we're encouraging the ship owners, managers, or the crewing companies to get seafarers onboarded onto the platform. So it's kind of like a welfare measure that they're extending to their seafarers.
Okay. Well, we'll have a look at the platform in a minute.
Sure.
Just so I understand, for example, by comparison, if I was flight crew, if I worked for AirAsia, for example, I would wear the red uniform and I would work with same people. I would have an office, next to the airport. That would be my base. I'd fly pretty much the same plane, same routes.
Right.
It's very familiar with me. I would be part of AirAsia. So when I walked into the airplane, that's who I'm representing. If I am crew in the naval context, when I walk onto that boat, am I part of that boat's identity, or am I part of the recruitment agent's identity? Like you say, there's no corporate culture. I wonder, that must affect people. For example, if I always worked on this boat, that's my home, right? I get that. That's the familiarity, the consistency. Or I always worked with this crew, that's my home.
Right.
But if I'm changing boats and changing crew and I don't have, I'm not representing to anybody any kind of identity, that must be quite tough. I don't know how it actually works.
True. It's like your environment is always changing, like you mentioned. And the fact is, even when you're talking about air miles, for example, I believe some of the benefits actually are applicable to them, right? But with SeaMiles, what we focused on is making sure those benefits also translate to their immediate family members. So that's one of the ways that we're actually focused on their welfare, because they feel isolated. So they want to have a way to connect with their loved ones back home. And so we keep that connection alive and well.
Good. Interesting. Okay. Definitely a pain point.
Yes.
Yep.
Let's jump in. Solution. We'll get to slide 5 on the pitch deck, and maybe you can describe this a little bit. You talked about the app, obviously, as the starting point here. Let's jump into it a little bit. Can you talk through, I guess this is a usage scenario, isn't it, of how somebody actually would use it in this situation, the solution visualized, and bearing in mind some people are actually listening rather than watching. Can you describe this? How would I actually use the app? So if you can walk me through.
So I'll walk you through it. So a crew member gets on at port A, right? So when he gets on at his port of embarkation, he uploads his seaman book or his CDC, and through those details, we can track the movement of the ship.
Right.
There's an IMO
number. That's a
number.
standardized document, is it?
Correct.
Right,
Correct.
okay.
Correct. It's like a passport for seafarers, right? For crew. So we can track the ship because we have an integration with a service provider that has information on ships that are sailing throughout the world, right? So as long as he's sailing on that ship, we've tracked him. So the number of nautical miles that he sailed until the time he disembarks at port C, which is his final port of disembarkation, we track him. On disembarkation, he uploads his CDC again with the stamp that shows where he's disembarked. And whatever miles he's accrued through the sail, he can redeem against a variety of services, the offerings on our app.
So can the family members track this as well from their side?
We do not have a GPS functionality as yet, but that's in the phases to come. Yeah.
Yeah. So I imagine that would probably whether they can track it by GPS or just to see the stages and where they are.
Yes.
Can a family member actually see, okay, port B, port C? Do they get that?
They could. That's what
at this stage now?
Not at this stage.
Okay.
Not at this stage.
Interesting. All right. So I imagine that's a big part of it, isn't it? That just the fact that they understand that they're okay.
Right.
Yes.
They're somewhere in the world. It's like the postcard, isn't it, in the old days?
Yes.
A digital one now.
Yes,
Yeah.
I remember bringing us back to the old days. I remember when my dad used to call and we were all at home. We would all queue up because it used to be a satellite call, and there used to be that echo effect
Delay.
and the time lag, and we just want to have that one word with dad, and
Yeah.
So now
when they're on the ships now, do they get, what's the internet connection like? I mean, obviously,
It's
this is a big
limited.
thing for people,
It
isn't
is.
it? Right?
It is.
Correct.
It
Like-
is. It is. It is limited. They do have Wi-Fi, but
Yeah.
it's not very good. It's not. I mean, we're getting there. We're getting there soon.
Yeah.
There are a lot of developments in the satcom space as well, and they are trying to provide, even for security reasons. Now, as you're aware of the scenario, it's a difficult time right now for
Yeah.
maritime on the whole.
I imagine, I mean, well, just from the individual side as well, not having access to decent Wi-Fi for
Yes.
like weeks on end.
Yeah.
That probably alone is enough to, affect their morale. Like, given what people are used to
Yes.
and how people are used to checking this all the time, right?
That's right. There's a huge disconnect that's happening. So if technology isn't given and they don't have these technology offerings, with them while they're sailing too, it's a huge disconnect now in today's day as well.
Okay, let's jump back in and have a look at some more slides from the solutions just so we can understand.
Sure.
Obviously, a big part of it is the ecosystem you're building. So we're going to talk about that. And then let me understand how the actual model works
Yes.
within the ecosystem, how you make your money out of this. What's the
Yes.
charging model here?
Yes. So the pricing model, so the app is free. Anyone can download it, anyone can use it. And when you're transacting on the app, you can earn miles irrespective. We have 3 different subscriber options, which is a direct crew member. We have a shore personal, and we have a direct member, which is anyone, say you, me, anyone, families, they can use it. But right now, we're, like I said earlier, we're encouraging it for seafarers or for crew as a B2B model. So we'd like for the companies to pay the subscription fee for their seafarers or their crew members. And we have different tiers depending on the, the rank of the is he officer category, is he rating? So the company can decide what they want to give to whom. And then your earning of miles is dependent on which tier you're subscribed to by your company.
So the benefits for an employer to do this would be what?
Again, you're extending like welfare benefits to a seafarer. You're giving him the platform. Also, we can customize it for, like I said, there's a lack of, corporate culture. So if a seafarer has been with you, you want to retain that seafarer, you can offer a rejoining bonus through miles. They do have rejoining bonuses still, but it's all, again, incentivized by money. There's no other benefits right now. So through the app, we're offering, the different services and products to seafarers. So it's a gesture, it's a goodwill gesture by the company to their seafarers,
When you mean the companies, who are they? Are these agencies or are these?
They could be crewing or
Right.
manning
Primarily
agencies.
crewing agencies.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how much of the recruitment do they take up in the market? Do they take up the lion's share?
It depends on it depends again. It's dependent on the region. So in the Philippines, crewing agencies take up a majority of recruitment, but there are also companies that have their own crew, their own crewing agency. So it's different in different regions.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Fine. Okay. Let's jump back in and just go a little bit deeper into the app here. Okay. So tell us a little bit about the features of the app so we can understand how it works. We talked about the memberships and you've got some levels of membership here as well.
Yes.
Before we get into the market again at the back end of the pitch deck, I'm always interested when people develop technologies, like once they develop a technology and they get data back to the people who run the technology, how it changes behaviors. So how does this actually change behaviors maybe of the people on deck or the agencies? What happens now? Now, for example, you say here on this slide that you reward the behaviors we seek. What actually does it do? Does it change people in a way having this app?
Well, we are actually focused in this area. We're actually focused on keeping them engaged with the platform because when it comes to loyalty programs, we have a term we refer to as breakage. Ideally, up to about 30% of points are unused, and that can contribute to the fact that the individual doesn't interact with the platform anymore. So by engaging them on different levels, whether it's contests or quizzes or even daily activities where they log in and transact with the app, we keep them engaged, we keep them connected to the platform. And as a result, it also allows us to track the sort of spending they do. So companies as a whole understand what are the needs of their seafarers. So for example, if you were to focus more on, fitness memberships or dining out, and if a company is able to see that that's where the seafarer is focused, that those are the things he desires more, they can tweak their offering with us to reflect that and to give them more promotions and offers along that category.
What do you think the employer learns through doing this? I mean, what do they
Well,
not
learn,
know already?
They learn to retain them. They learn to keep them happy because ideally what we are saying is that the seafarers don't feel connected to shore personnel. They don't feel connected to their companies. So by tracking their user activity on the app, we're finding a way to quantify which elements or which benefits matter most to them. And that's always good from an employer point of view. You truly understand what your employee cares about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Often it's less of the gimmicky things. It's more
Right.
sort of the human stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
And
more human focused.
Just to add to what Rohan says, we also have a gamification model that we'll roll out in a subsequent phase. So say a seafarer has done exceptional service at sea, or he's encountered a difficult situation and, sailed the vessel through effectively, successfully. He can be rewarded, he can be applauded, he can be given a badge, the number of ports he's touched. He can earn a badge for that. The longest voyage he's done that year.
Right.
He can earn. So there's a gamification model also.
Do you
so
have
we're
like a
trying to-
leaderboard as well? For
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
true. We
yeah,
actually
we
do.
You
in
do?
different categories. Yeah, but that's
that
in subsequent.
counts for a lot of people, right?
Yes,
That does, yeah.
yes. And also with, like you said, attracting young talent, like people to actually join the industry despite, the shortcomings of it. Youngsters nowadays, they do, appreciate technology and it talks to them, it talks to their families. It'd be nice, for a wife to see their husband achieving these badges and then you can talk about it in a community. You can be connected with others around you, similar, like, just to go back to an instance that happened in my family, we lost a family member at sea, an uncle of mine, and luckily for us, we're blessed because we're a big family, so there was enough support, in terms of numbers. The company does compensate you very well because they're highly insured, but in terms of a community, apart from family, there's that doesn't exist, except for your WhatsApp groups. But in such a case, or if there's a piracy attack, there's something like that happening, who do you reach out to? Besides your employer or your office crew, who do you reach out to? So we're trying to also create a community and a culture wherein there's support for even family members or crew members going through a difficult time. He comes home, he's grappling with different issues, mental health issues, maybe alcoholism, So to kind of like connect the community, so to speak.
Yeah, I imagine there's a lot which doesn't get talked about as well.
That's right.
I haven't spent time on a ship working, only as a consumer, as a traveller myself, but is it quite a macho culture? Is there? I mean, imagine a lot of men together in a
It's
ship.
changing now.
It
but
is
that sort of
changing,
prevents people talking about these issues
That's right.
openly as well.
That's exactly right, Graham. I mean, now there is the advent of a lot of female seafarers also, which is good. But there are still a lot of issues. I mean, I have sailed on a ship. My dad, when I was little, he took on a voyage from Singapore to Australia, to Perth, just so
Wow.
that I could sail. So
How long did that take?
It took us, I think, a couple of months. But
Wow.
but it was the best experience. I mean, I
Yeah.
still have vivid
You
memories.
weren't working, were you?
No,
were-
I was very little. I was just about 4 or 5. You're not allowed to do it nowadays because of the safety
Yeah.
issues and
Right,
all of
the
that.
safety
Families
issue.
are not allowed to sail. And I mean,
Not
some
anymore.
companies allow wives. Like my brother.
Ah.
My brother has had his wife on
Yeah.
board and they've sailed together. But I remember as a little child, sailing and I can understand the gravity of it because we would see no land like for days and
Yeah.
weeks, and that's when you understand how lonely you are. And if you're not a social person, it's just you with your thoughts and work and work and work, So that environment can get to you, although you see the most beautiful sunrises and sunsets.
Oh, I imagine, yeah. By the end of the
I'd
day.
like to touch on something you said. The idea of you being isolated, because when I sailed with my dad when I was much younger, before obviously the rules changed, everybody else on the ship, obviously my dad is related to me, but everybody else, they felt so isolated that they would literally spend their free time with me and my mom. And it almost felt like we were there to replace a family that they couldn't contact back home, which is amazing because I obviously felt like I had like 20, 30 people running after me.
You're
What do you
the
want? Do you
adopted
want?
son, right?
Exactly.
For everybody, right? Wow. So now that's changed, but that's not allowed.
It has.
Yeah.
It's not allowed anymore, mostly because of liability issues as
Right.
well.
Okay.
But
Yeah. Do you think, just out of interest, do you think that industry also attracts people maybe who are kind of escaping a little bit from shore life? Because I imagine it looks a bit glamorous, doesn't it? And then you could think
It does.
being on a boat, sunset, sunrises, all that, just escaping. But at the same time, when they actually get on there, they realise actually they're not escaping anything. It's still with them, right?
Yeah.
So I can imagine that must be a real issue. Don't they have people on board like, welfare officers? Those people have those kind of roles?
No. So that's a huge gap that the industry is now realizing, especially the IMO, the International Maritime Organization. It recognizes this now, and that's why there's a felt need for welfare, for connectivity. But with SeaMiles, like I said, we're taking a proactive approach to that. I mean, we're not going to be able to solve all these problems immediately, but our core values, as a team and even as the product, are innovation and welfare. These are our core, two of our main core values. So at every phase of development, we are going to be looking into this. And with me and my editorial experience, I was a managing editor with, UK news publication before this. I have written and researched extensively on seafarer issues because I've been part of that, and like for me, my dad has always been like my hero, and when he came home also you have to be strong for the family, you have to support the family, you have to, enjoy that time. But yeah, I mean, I can relate now that I'm seeing the underbelly of it and understanding it. There's quite a lot that we need to do. And I think an offering like this appeals because it's not very heavy, to consume. It's easy to consume. There's ease of access. And we're rolling out features at every stage that will appeal to both young talent and even experienced, people.
Tell me about something that you've learnt, maybe a feature in the app or something that you've experimented with that surprised you. Or, like when you've put it out there, you thought, we'll just throw that in. That's not going to be a big hit. But people really like this thing. Or you've learnt something about seafarers and how they use the app, which you didn't expect. It's always the case when you develop a technology, isn't it? They kind of use it a little bit differently to the plan.
There are always unintended use cases that pop up where you don't expect it, for sure.
Yeah. What have you learned in that process from your...
We're still in the initial phases, Graham, to be very honest with you. The app has just gone live on the App Store, and the Play Store. So we're still capturing market, so to speak. And all our functionalities are not yet out there, but we're in the process of, getting funding right now, so that we can give out all those functionalities at least in phase one. But what we're doing is we're actively, going and talking to crewing agency, ship owners, managers, talking to crew themselves, like through my network, through, our team network. We're talking to people and understanding what we can put out even for phase one. Phase one is really simple. Like you can see, we've got, affiliates that you can transact on. And earn miles. The miles can be redeemed against hotels, flights, and vouchers. That's it's as simple as that. So people start using it. They start understanding it. They start getting comfortable with it, and then we'll have our integrations. More integrations in subsequent phases.
I imagine there's a real challenge, though, isn't there? That you have a group of people who are away most of the time.
Yes.
They are your users. How are you going to address that? Because if they were here, if they were in malls, you could easily target them. Obviously, they do spend time on shore, but a lot of the time they're away and with pretty crappy internet connections sometimes as well. So how are you going to deal with that? You must have these sort of spots where you can get hold of people and get them using these apps.
Yes. So like I said, anyone can download the app and use it. So family members can use it, and seafarers can transfer these miles to their family members. They can buy a gift, say it's a birthday, it's an anniversary, they're sailing, but they can use the app. It doesn't require high bandwidth. It's very simple. It's very easy on internet also. So they can use the app to get those benefits for family back home.
Yeah.
And their family can also use it.
Okay, so the family can install it as well and sync up. That's probably an important part.
That's where we sort of take care of the family members, where they're also able to access the points that the seafarer has accumulated. So even if he's away at sea, the app obviously will be whitelisted in terms of the applications allowed on the vessel, in terms of the internet connection. And it allows them to maybe, your son has his stage play, for example. You might want to send a gift back home. Maybe your wife would like to travel somewhere. You could buy her a ticket. And it makes it easier for you to do that. it obviously doesn't substitute for you actually being there,
No.
but it's the next best thing.
Okay. Very interesting. Where does this go from here, the future? Obviously, you have a very big market,
Hmm.
and it's a global market,
Yes.
and it's a very, disparate market in many, many different pockets in the world. People on boats, often, very far away from the marketing hub that you sit in here in Singapore, right? So where do you have sort of phases for rolling this out? You talk about phase one, developing the app, the MVP.
Yes.
Are you live now?
Yes.
When
we are.
Okay, so what's the next step? Are you targeting geographic areas, or are you targeting particular types of
Yes.
Correctly.
customers?
For now, we're focusing on Sri Lanka and India
Right.
specifically, and we're having talks with crewing agencies there as well as merchants and other networks.
Yeah. So you're going to go in through the crewing agencies, and they would white
Again-
label the app, or they would just pay for like a group of users, like you said.
Yeah, they would
before?
get seafarers onboarded onto the app.
Yeah.
They would get us the users, and then we keep developing based on the feedback that we get. We do have a roadmap, encompassing different offerings at different phases, but we are using a geographical model right now. And also we're omni-channel, so we're looking at, offline merchants too. So say here in Singapore, since, we have a huge network here, Rohan is actively speaking with offline merchants. So, where a user of SeaMiles can get maybe, a free drink, free, French fries, things like that,
And that's just by virtue of being a member.
Yeah.
you know.
Right. Yeah, and people like free things, don't
Yeah.
they? So that
Yeah,
always
they
works,
definitely
right?
do.
Okay, so what are your requirements? I know you talked about fundraising. It's all in the deck there that people can see it. What do you need at this stage? Is it partnerships? Is it people? Is it technology? What are you looking for?
So we have a very good technology partner by the name of Vernost. I'm not sure if you've heard of Jet Privilege Miles, JP Miles.
Yeah,
So
I'm aware of it.
Yeah, so they developed that platform. So we're very sound in terms of a technology partner. We are looking at funding primarily at this stage to enable all the functionalities of our app, because it's based on a debit system, not a credit system, some of the integrations that we hope to have. So that's where we're at right now. We have a proper roadmap of the services that we want to roll out, but yeah, funding is the need of the hour for us right now.
Okay, fine. Funding, I'll sort of spare the details, because if people want to talk funding, they talk to the founders directly and give them access through you.
Yes.
And recruitment as well. I mean, every startup, every small business, medium-sized business,
Yeah.
it's endless recruitment, finding talent.
Yeah, we're definitely looking to staff up.
What are you looking for? What kind of people? Does it have to be people that come from the world of maritime? Because obviously that's something that you know very well. Would that help? Do you have a particular requirement in terms of mindset or skills, hard skills you're looking for?
Yeah. So we're definitely looking for good talent. We're always on the lookout for good talent. People who are passionate about these two core values that we spoke about, which is innovation and also welfare. People who have experience in that space or who would like to work in that space can definitely shout out to us.
Yeah.
We'd
Would
be
they have to
happy.
have maritime experience?
I mean,
No,
it would
not
help
necessarily.
in our
Not
opinion,
necessarily.
but
Yeah.
not necessarily.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we want them to be as passionate as we are about the company and our solution.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because our team is made up of people who have experience in the maritime space, but also experience in finance, and there's a loyalty angle there too, and the rewards program. So we're quite diverse like that. We have expertise in both domains. So people who are looking to work in those domains and who have the same values as us, who are as
Absolutely.
driven as us. Yes.
Yeah. And based where?
In Singapore, in India, we plan to open an office in India too. But
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be the next phase, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that will open the floodgates for the applications. I'm
Oh,
sure,
yeah.
right? So,
True.
great. Priyanka and Rohan, thanks for coming and sharing your journey with us as well, and also what you're trying to do with SeaMiles.
Right.
Wishing you all the best with that. It's a long journey.
Yeah.
It's a bit of an adventure,
Thank you so
but
much.
it goes with the territory, really, doesn't it? Being
Yes.
involved in the maritime industry.
Yes.
Best way to reach you both? Are you good on LinkedIn?
Yes,
Does that
we
work
are.
for you?
Yeah.
So we'll put your
LinkedIn,
details.
Facebook.
Yes.
Excellent.
Great.
Priyanka and Rohan from SeaMiles, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Graham. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, it has.
Hi, Graham Brown from Pitchdeckasia. Pitchdeckasia, powered by Pitch Media Asia. Pitchdeckasia is all about giving startup founders a voice. We are a show to help startup founders share their journey. So if you enjoy these stories, then why not subscribe to our YouTube channel? There's the subscribe button over there. Hit that subscribe button. Follow us on the journey. Leave a comment. I look forward to seeing you at the next episode.